The cop was following a procedure.
Never said I oppose fracking. Show the tape. Put it on your website. Put it on the website.
Live from Clark Studios in Rochester, New York. Broadcasting around the world. You're listening to You Made It Political, where the voice of the keyboard warrior is finally heard and the arguments presented are put to the political test. And now, here's your host, Matt Clark.
As if this country doesn't have enough to deal with right now, Mad Maxine Waters enters the scene and takes this shit show to a whole other level. For those of you who don't know, riots are exploding, protests are going off in a violent manner that we've never seen before down on the ground in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Businesses are boarding themselves up, residents are leaving by the thousands, and civil unrest is about to explode onto the scene, especially as we get closer to the verdict of the Derek Chauvin trial being announced. The verdict is now in the hands of the jury. Closing arguments have been done. There's nothing more to discuss. The jurors are now deliberating, and we have no idea how long it's going to take. But there's one thing that we do know for sure. Regardless of what happens, the violence is going to continue. It's a very, very sad day in Minneapolis, Minnesota. But what doesn't help is that you have congresswomen who are supposed to be composed, who are supposed to be helping the situation, who are supposed to be part of the solution, are running their mouths on the ground inciting violence. And that's exactly what Maxine Waters, again, is doing to America. And you better believe Black Lives Matter is going to take her cue. It's a very dangerous situation to put this country in, especially after everything we've already witnessed in the last few weeks. So let's get into the show right now and discuss what's going on the ground, as well as what happened and what Maxine said and how this case may, just maybe, might be overturned because of her reckless and completely unacceptable behavior. Let's get into the show. So as we know, Minnesota is under complete civil unrest right now. There's violence in the street. There's riots everywhere. Nobody's even calling it a peaceful protest. Before I start the show, I want to acknowledge the fact that I am 100% in favor of the Black community fighting for justice. 100%. I am for the Black community. I pray for the Black community. I hope that whatever they're going through right now, I hope that through peaceful protest, they're able to get their message out. What I am not in favor of is how Black Lives Matter has derailed the message. And it's now turned into this complete violence, complete anarchy, that now spreads across the United States. We know in America, law and order is the only way. Because now we've seen the Democrats do it their way. We've seen the Democrats take to the streets, promote violence. We've seen what it does to our cities and our communities and our businesses. And we've seen that the people aren't okay with it. They don't like it. So yes, maybe we need to go back to law and order. Maybe we need to consider going back to the Republican way, which is maintaining peace in the streets. So Minnesota, Waltz, he declares state of emergency prior to Derek Chauvin verdict. So the verdict isn't even out yet, and they're already declaring a state of emergency. This is how bad things are about to get on the ground there. It's not even done. The verdict's not even out yet. And already Minnesota is declaring a state of emergency. So I'm not surprised, because look what's happened up to this point. We've seen these riots start as much of a week ago. So a week ago, a week and a half ago, they started. Then we have the Dante Wright situation. Then we have another 13-year-old Black kid being killed in Chicago. It's like every other day or every day, there's another police killing that the media is making a spectacle of. or there's another mass shooting. And by mass shooting, I mean 3 people or more, which, to be honest, I think is an absolute joke that we are considering mass shootings 3 people or more. So we're already under attack by these riots and protests, and they're just going to get worse. But what's making things even more catastrophic, what's making things even more disastrous for this country, is when you have people like Maxine Waters, who's supposed to be a role model for the black community, who's supposed to be a respected Congress member of the United States. What's making matters worse is that she is now on the ground, flew in from Los Angeles, California. She's now on the ground calling for more violence, calling for confrontation. That is not going to get the message across to America. That is only going to piss off most of the country and have even more resentment towards the Black Lives Matter movement. Let's listen to Maxine Waters had to say and how she is now responsible for potentially having this entire case thrown out, according to the judge. And we'll listen to him in just a second. But first, let's take a listen to Maxine Waters and what she had to say, for those of you who haven't heard exactly what's come out of her mouth lately.
We're looking for a guilty verdict. We're looking for a guilty verdict, and we're looking to see if all of the talk that took place and has been taking place after they saw what happened to George Floyd, if nothing does not happen, then we know that we've got to not only stay in the street, but we've got to fight for justice. But I am very hopeful, and I hope that we're going to get a verdict that is say guilty, guilty, guilty. And if we don't, we cannot go away.
And not just manslaughter, right? I mean...
Oh, no, not manslaughter. No. This is guilty for murder. I don't know whether it's in the first degree, but as far as I'm concerned, it's first degree.
Congresswoman, what happens if we do not get what you just told? What should the people do? What should protesters on the street do?
I didn't hear you.
What happens? What should protesters do?
Well, we got to stay on the street, and we've got to get more active. We've got to get more confrontational. We've got to make sure that they know that we mean business.
So clearly she is inciting violence there. There's no two ways about it. They asked her, the journalist there on the ground, as you just saw, they asked her, what should protesters do if Derek Chauvin doesn't get convicted of murder? What should protesters do if he gets anything but the max sentence, which is also very dangerous for a Congress member to be weighing in and trying to influence a case. And this has been the situation from the very beginning. This is why we are not going to have a fair trial here. There's no way these jurors, who, by the way, were allowed to be named publicly, which I also thought that was a horrible situation for the entire case here, because these people are already fearful of their lives. They're already fearful of their families' lives. Are they going to be able to really try this case with a clear head, knowing that the entire world is out to hang them if they don't call a verdict for anything less than the maximum penalty? So it's already unfair to begin with. Then you have Maxine Waters now coming in and putting pressure on the community, which is only going to put more pressure on these jurors. They should have never been named publicly in the first place. So the journalists ask Maxine Waters, they ask her, what do you think should happen? What should protesters do if there's anything but the maximum penalty called for here? She says, we got to get more active. We got to get more confrontational. I mean, how much more active do you want to be right now? We're already burning down the streets in these cities, whether it's Antifa or Black Lives Matter. That is a call for violence. There's no doubt about it. And what pisses me off even more about this entire situation is that we hung President Trump for his call to march peacefully to the Capitol in protest. That is all he said. He did not say we need to get confrontational. He did not say we need to get more active. So that's where I have a huge problem with Maxine Waters right now, is the fact that we impeached a former president over this. The Democrats won't shut the hell up about it to this day, yet there's not a single peep out of Maxine Waters calling for violence. You can't even dispute that. So what's even worse is that now we're turning to the Democrats and we're saying, hey, wait a second. You guys had so much to say about President Trump's call for a peaceful march to the Capitol, but you have nothing to say about Maxine Waters? How does that work? And even Maxine Waters herself is now brushing off comments. So Waters brushes off judge's criticism over confrontational comment, claims he said her words. Well, there's nothing to brush off here. And we'll take a look at now exactly what she means by brushing off judge's criticism. She clearly doesn't care. I mean, she is a loose cannon right now. She needs to be expelled. She needs to be impeached. She needs to be removed right now. And if Republicans do not move to impeach her, then don't expect to win a single election again, because we are sick to death of Republicans sitting in the sidelines and not doing a thing about it. We are sick to death of our Republican senators and congressmen bending over for the Democrats and doing nothing to fight against this type of behavior. A couple are, but not all of them. It's insane and disgusting that they don't do anything. And they better step up now, because we're already losing faith in the party. And when they do not go up against people like Maxine Waters, when they do not go up against Biden and Pelosi and every other Democrat who supports and condones this sort of disgusting behavior, it makes us question whether we want to support that party anymore. It's already a dwindling disaster. So the Republican Party, they need to grow a pair, step up, and put an end to this bullshit now, before they start losing election after election after election. The worst thing that can happen right now is we have had enough and form our own party, because it'll further divide the Republicans even further. So Maxine Waters comes out, she brushes off all criticism from the judge, and we'll play that video in just a second of the judge discussing the fact that, listen, she may have just got this case thrown out. We'll play that in just a second, but let's take a look at exactly what Maxine Waters had to say about how she doesn't believe she's done anything wrong. So Waters was asked about the judge's comments on Monday and said, the judge says my words don't matter. Her office did not immediately respond to an after-hours email from Fox News seeking comment. So when she was asked about the judge's comments, she says, quote, the judge says my words don't matter. That's not what the judge said at all. It's not what he said at all. And she's now trying to twist this and throw this back into the Republicans' face, saying, well, hold on a second, you guys don't think my words matter. No, we think they matter. And we think it's great that you're down there on the ground fighting. What we don't agree with is your calls for inciting violence. That's not what we agree at. So the judge, now during the trial, I believe it was yesterday, slams inflammatory remarks by Waters. Let's take a look at that video.
We got to stay on the street, and we've got to get more active. We've got to get more confrontational. We've got to make sure that they know that we mean business.
It's harder to imagine anything more inappropriate than a member of Congress flying in from California to inform local leaders, not so subtly, that this defendant had better be found guilty or else there will be big trouble in the streets. It's beyond the pale for a sitting member of the United States Congress to look at what happened last summer and imply there should be some kind of a sequel.
Well, the headlines were basically about Maxine Waters Saturday in Minnesota. Familiar, Republicans pounce on her comments. However, it wasn't just Republican critics. Here's the judge in the Chauvin case today.
I'll give you that Congresswoman Waters may have given you something on appeal that may result in this whole trial being overturned. I wish elected officials would stop talking about this case, especially in a manner that is disrespectful to the rule of law and to the judicial branch and our function. I think if they want to give their opinions, they should do so in a respectful and in a manner that is consistent with their oath to the Constitution, to respect a co-equal branch of government.
So clearly, the judge has made it very clear. I think they may have given you grounds for an appeal that may just, in fact, overturn this case. It's very clear that he is disgusted with the situation. And the last thing that the black community needs right now is people like Maxine Waters running her mouth, potentially derailing this entire thing. I mean, we already have our reason to believe why Derek Chauvin may get completely acquitted in the first place. It's really not the show to get into right now. I've done shows on that in the past, but today is about discussing the fact that Congress members, respected Congress members of the United States of America, are on the ground inciting violence and getting away with it. And that is what I have a huge problem with. A very big problem with. Let's head over to the Keyboard Warrior Cam and see what the American people have to say about the fact that Maxine Waters continues to run her mouth. She continues to incite violence, and not a single thing is being done about it, except for a few Republican politicians like we just saw Mitch McConnell giving her a slap on the wrist. That's not going to get the job done, Mitch. We'll talk about what Kevin McCarthy is doing, as well as what Marjorie Taylor Greene plans to do. At least somebody on the Republican Party is doing something. It always comes down to aggressive Republican conservatives like Marjorie Taylor Greene to do anything, while the rest of them just sit there like a deer in headlights and don't do shit ever. And that is why we are having a big problem right now. That is why we are losing faith in this party. That is why people aren't turning up to the polls to elect these officials or re-elect them. That is why we are losing.
As it was before,
so
very
we take a look
seriously
here.
Concerning to us.
We take a look here. We'll get to the comments in just a second, after we figure out what video is running, and we got to kill that feed.
And that they will be held accountable by the international community.
So Michael says she don't matter. Talking about Maxine Waters and her calls for violence. Michael says she don't matter. Her words calling for violence if she doesn't get what she wants does matter. Waters is truly a POS that needs to be removed from office permanently. Absolutely agree. She does need to be removed. And if anything but that is pursued, I will be furious. And as well, so will tens of millions of other people towards our own party. Grace says, we do have the freedom of speech, but all words matter and have consequences. They certainly do. And they absolutely did when it came to former President Trump. Words matter, right? The Democrats put him on trial for days, putting words in his mouth, omitting facts, omitting key data to prove that he did not mean anything more than marching to the Capitol steps. Now, if you don't believe that, and you want to go with Trump incited violence, that's fine. I'll give you that. But you cannot let Maxine Waters off the hook today. If you're going to slam President Trump, if all of those Democrats were going to slam President Trump, then they better start slamming Maxine Waters at the same time. You cannot have it both ways, people. You cannot go after Trump and let Maxine off the hook. They better impeach her. The Democrats better vote to impeach her because all of them, 100% of them, voted to impeach Trump. So they will be considered the biggest and most disgusting hypocrites this country has ever seen if they do anything but vote against impeaching Maxine Waters. Sharon says she did just exactly what they accused Trump of. Where's the outrage? When will the American people wake up to this government-controlled racism? And again, that's what a lot of people believe. This is all controlled. This is all race baiting endorsed by CNN and the left for votes. And why do I think that? Because since this trial started, we haven't heard a single Democrat. We haven't heard from Kamala Harris. We haven't heard from Bernie Sanders. We haven't heard from AOC. Where are they all now? These guys were all happy to run their mouths supporting Black Lives Matter. Where are they now? Where's the leader of Black Lives Matter now? Besides working on her $5 million property portfolio. Where's the money going? We've touched on this in other episodes. Where's the $90 million they raised? It's not going to the black communities. Where are the Democrats now? Well, they don't care. They got their votes. They're in office. They want nothing to do with this situation. And they've made it clear. Kamala Harris has been nowhere to be found. She won't even go down to the freaking border, for Christ's sake, let alone deal with an issue right here in our backyard. So the Democrats have made it very clear. They're not interested anymore. They were happy to be a part of the movement last summer when they wanted their votes. Now they were nowhere to be seen. And for the first time ever, I actually really feel bad for the black community. I actually do. I sympathize with the black community because I've seen how awful the Democrats have been treating them. I think for the first time, they actually have woken up to this insanity and thought, what the hell? Where are they now? Where are all the Democratic politicians who were with us supporting this? Where are they today? Well, they're not with you today because the riots and the protests are so out of control now, the Democrats can't control you. You have now taken matters into your own hands, and you don't care whether Kamala Harris promotes this or not. The black community has gone, or BLM at least, have gone rogue. And the Democrats and CNN, they don't control them anymore. And you know what? I applaud the black community for saying, screw you, CNN, screw you, Democratic politicians. We're doing this our way now. I don't condone the violence, but I do absolutely applaud the black community for not giving a shit what the Democrats or CNN have to say about anything. And that's where I want to make myself very clear. I am for the black community. I'm not for the violence. I don't agree with the way they're handling things. I think we can get this job done if we all came together. And in that regards, I'm 100% with the black community. And I hope they get their message out. And I hope we curb racism. But this is not the way to do it. And remember, all of you, including the people that I'm actually for and stand by right now, you condemned President Trump for a sentence that he didn't even say. So if you're going to do that, then I better see all of you jump down the throats of Maxine Waters the same way. Otherwise, I won't be able to take your movement seriously, just like so many other people around the country aren't when they see the Democrats let Maxine Waters get away. The Democrats' MO is to stay silent on everything. Once they gained power, they now want to duck out, slip into the dark, and have nothing to say about any matter. That is their game plan. And it started with Hunter Biden. It then trickled into the southern border. And now they are staying silent with Black Lives Matter and the protests and the riots. They are doing nothing. Well, Minnesota has called in 3,000 National Guards because they are scared to death. And let's be honest, were the National Guards called in last year? Nope. Why? Because the Democrats had BLM under their thumb. They told them when to riot, where to riot, and when to stop. As you'll notice, Kamala Harris isn't out there bailing people out of jail right now. Hundreds, thousands of people have been arrested this time, and they are not getting out of jail. The Democrats should be vocal supporting the black community, but they're not because they already got your vote. Nancy says she sold her soul, referring to Maxine Waters and her words for inciteful violence. Nancy says she sold her soul, if she ever had one, to Satan a long time ago. Kaylee, keep your shit show corrupt clowns out of Minnesota. Our own worthless leadership is already too much to deal with. It is a shit show there. It's a total clown show. God, I feel so bad for the residents of Minnesota who are being driven out of their own cities right now. They don't need this. They don't need Maxine Waters coming in and endorsing the violence that's already destroyed their city. We've seen the videos. We've seen the riots. Businesses have been ruined, and the Chauvin case isn't even over yet. So you can imagine how much worse it's going to get, which finally, as we know, they've declared a state of emergency prior to the Derek Chauvin verdict. So we know it's about to go completely freaking apeshit down there. And Maxine Waters coming out did not help matters anymore. Brenda says maybe those committing criminal acts should be held accountable. Wouldn't that be justice? They want justice. Give it to them. No rewards for breaking the law. If it doesn't start and deter at the little infractions, they progress to bigger ones, which is what we're seeing right now. Some people are just evil and they take advantage of every opportunity presented. Toby says the real victims are the people of the city of Minneapolis. We're sorry that your mayor and governor care more about an agenda than the safety and well-being of the people, businesses, and buildings of your city/state. Let me remind all of you that the Democrats are 100% responsible for this. There's no two ways about it. They are responsible for this violence. They're encouraging the violence. They're inciting the violence. They're not condemning Maxine Waters for what she said. Therefore, they back this. So if you're a Democrat and you want this shit to end, stop voting Democrat. It's the only way it's going to happen. If you're sick to death of it, you don't have to tell your friends and family that you're going to start voting Republican. But let's be honest here. We didn't see this throughout Trump's presidency. We weren't at war with each other. The only thing Trump's guilty of is wanting a fair trial to question the election integrity cases that people brought forward. He had dozens of rallies that remained peaceful. Let's not forget about all of the rallies that Trump had. Rally after rally after rally during the pandemic, by the way, which remember, all of CNN and the Democrats kept saying super spreader events. This is going to make things worse. It never happened. Coronavirus cases didn't spike because of any of the rallies. They were peaceful. They were fun. They were exciting. It was a rah-rah motivational moment for America. And this went on throughout the entire campaign trail, while Black Lives Matter took to the streets with their violent and criminal acts of behavior. So since the Democrats took over, it has been nothing but one catastrophe after the next. And it hasn't stopped. I'm sick to death of it. Democrats are sick to death of it. Everybody is sick of this. And it goes all the way from local levels on the ground to statewide with Cuomo, sexual harassment, killing the elderly, Newsom over there causing complete depression throughout the states. Suicide within children are up tenfold. The teachers' unions control the show with the schools holding our children hostage. It has been one absolute disaster after the next. And it's all because the Democrats remain silent and they're criminals for allowing this, all in the name of votes. Illegal immigration, crisis is at the border. It just goes on and on and on. And I know that thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of Democrats are done with this shit. They are done with it. And if we don't see a massive swing from independents to Republicans or Democrats to Republicans throughout the primaries in 2022 and then ultimately the presidential election in 2024, then I'm going to have no hope for this country. We might as well pack our bags and leave. I had a conversation with somebody the other day. We were talking on Facebook Messenger, and she said, I can't believe what's going on with the schools. This is a mess. They're thinking about regionalizing the system here, meaning they're going to get rid of school districts. And as soon as I know a little bit more about that, I'll come on and I'll have a guest on and we'll talk about that. But they're thinking about eliminating school districts where now it doesn't matter where you live, your tax dollars go to other towns. Your children might not even go to the school that's in your district, or other kids from other districts will now start to be able to go to your schools. Basically, parents are going to have the freedom to choose where the children go to school, which I think is going to be a complete disaster and nightmare. And as soon as I know a little bit more about that, I'll bring a guest on and we'll talk about it. But I was talking to somebody yesterday, and she said, I can't believe this is about to happen. I said, listen, if this shit happens, we're gone. We're leaving the state. She said, no, Matt, but it's happening all over the state. And I said, fine, I'll leave the goddamn country. Because this is not what I moved back for. I left the country in 2002. I lived abroad for 15 years. I came back thinking I was coming back to a free country. I lived in communist China for 10 years. I lived in socialist/capitalist UK for 5 years. When our son was born in 2017, my wife and I said, where are we going to go back? Are we going to go back to Shanghai, China and be with your family? Or are we going to go to the United States and be with my family? The choice was obvious. Let's go back to the freest country in the world. If I knew the shit that we were going to be dealing with right now today, I would have never come back here. I would rather be in the communist country that calls themselves communist right now. At least I know what I'm getting myself into, rather than coming back to what I thought was a free and civil country. And that is anything but right now. I would never have moved back to this country. So I've left. We will pack our bags. We will leave again, because there is no way I'm going to sit here in America and watch this country go down in liberal flames, because that's what's happening right now. And the more I listen to other public figures and influencers online, the more I start to hear talk of civil war. And it's very dangerous. It's very dangerous that more and more people are starting to accept the violence. Because what Maxine Waters just did right now, by inciting violence there on the ground in Minneapolis, she just gave this country her blessing to engage in civil war. That's exactly what she's done. Because you cannot tell a certain group of people that it's okay to fight violently in the streets, that it's okay to get more confrontational, that it's okay to get more active. We all know what she meant by that. It's not okay to tell them that. But then you need to tell the other side, the Proud Boys, the other groups, that they need to stand down and stay out of it. It doesn't work like that, people. At some point, this country is going to get to breaking point. If the violence does not stop, if we do not tell BLM and Antifa to cut the shit, do not be surprised when the Proud Boys show back up. And I will not get in the way. I will have my lawn chair out and my popcorn in hand, and I will sit there and watch this shit show go down. Sadly. Because our own government, our own Democratic Party, continues to applaud this sort of behavior. Let's take a look at what Tucker Carlson had to say about Maxine Waters and what the local law enforcement down on the ground in Florida have to say about this. Remember, Governor DeSantis just signed a bill, an anti-riot bill, which is unbelievable that we even have to, in America, introduce bills that prevent rioting. Can you believe this is the level of freaking insanity that we are at this country right now? That this country is so out of control that we need now Republican governors to now sign bills that state you cannot riot. I thought that was already a law. But good for Governor DeSantis to say, listen, don't you dare try this shit in my backyard. You come to Florida, you are getting the maximum penalty. You try rioting in my state, you're going to prison for a very long time. So good for Governor DeSantis to promote local law enforcement and the local police. Let's see what local law enforcement down on the ground in Florida have to say about the riots that are going on and how they will not let this happen in their own state.
Grady Judd is the sheriff of Polk County, Florida. He joins us tonight. Sheriff, thanks so much for coming on. You enforce the law for a living. When violent mobs of civilians demand punishment for people outside of our legal system, what happens to the country?
Well, it breaks down the entire system. You know, we are a democracy because of our rule of law, and the republic fails to exist if we don't respect that republic and that law. And it's the beginning of the breakdown of the entire system, Tucker.
So, I mean, if your job, and I assume if, you work for the government at any level, local, state, federal, your job by definition is to preserve the system that we all, I thought, believed in. How do you, if a mob shows up at a witness's house and smears pig blood on it, do you ignore that?
Not in the state of Florida, we don't. We lock them up. We put them in jail. There's specific laws against that. Trespassing, intimidating the witness, interfering in the trial. It is offensive to me as an American to think that anyone could do that and get away with it. I'll guarantee you that won't happen in the state of Florida, and it won't happen in this county. They'll go to jail before quick.
I believe you, and that's one of the reasons so many people are moving to Florida right now. But I have to ask, I mean, we've seen situations like this fairly frequently in American history. We saw them in the 1950s and 60s where municipalities decided they were going to ignore the law. And so the feds got involved and said, I'm sorry, it's America. You can't violate people's civil rights. We're not going to allow it. If we have to send the 101st Airborne, we're going to do that. That's not even under consideration here. The Justice Department of the Biden administration is doing absolutely nothing. What do you make of that?
Well, certainly I hope that the Attorney General Garland recognizes and upholds his oath to the Constitution. We all take an oath to support the Constitution and individual rights of everyone. People have the right to protest. They have a right to be angry with the government. They don't have a right to be violent. They don't have a right to attack government officials. They don't have a right to interfere in trials when people are trying to get a fair trial in the United States of America. We protect that right in the state of Florida. Governor DeSantis is very strong. We're very strong. We do what's right in Florida all the time. That's a guarantee.
I don't think I've heard it more clearly put than that. Chef Grady Judd of Polk County, Florida, appreciate your coming on tonight.
So I think it was great to listen to Grady Judd just kind of talk about the fact and remind us all that law and order is why our democracy works so well. I mean, he said, we are a democracy because of rule of the law. And our entire republic breaks down if we throw out that law. We can't operate without law and order. And we're seeing what happens right now. You look what happened in Portland. You look what's happening on the ground in Minneapolis. You look what's happened in Chicago. You look what's happened in my very own Rochester, New York. Without law and order, our democracy fails. Our republic, it crumbles. It collapses. We need law and order. This whole abolish the police, this whole defund the police is the biggest mistake this country has ever made. It's the biggest mistake, or just the worst thing the Democrats can do right now, because we're seeing firsthand how badly this country suffers when we throw law and order out the door. And who's going to pay for this? Because I better not get a tax bill for this bullshit in Minneapolis, in Portland. Who is going to pay for all of this? Because we don't have anything in the bills, in the stimulus packages, that throw money at these black communities. Now, all of a sudden, Biden wants to throw infrastructure in the next bill. Well, it's too late. We're already broke. And he wants to do it by raising our taxes. So, yes, there's no way we're paying for this without our taxes being raised, because he's going to throw all this rioting, all this violence into our infrastructure bill. No, infrastructure is fixing our transit systems, fixing our railroads, fixing our bridges, our buildings, not running around fixing the damage that these assholes have caused over the last few months or years. That's not infrastructure. You broke it, you pay for it. And if we have so much see a tax hike because of this, I hope we have our own protests and take to the streets to say we are not paying this goddamn bill. And a tax protest is probably exactly what this country needs now. Maybe we do need to bankrupt our government. That might be our form of peaceful protest. And I'd like to see the American people step up and start doing that. And it starts right here on the ground locally by not paying our school tax bill in the fall. If these children aren't back to school 5 days per week, all grades, all districts, everybody, city schools, suburban schools, I don't give a shit what their hidden agenda is right now. I want these kids back in school. And if that doesn't happen, then we need to have our own tax protest. And don't tell me that's not the right thing to do, because you are allowing these riots to continue. You are allowing the violent acts to continue in these cities across America. So there is nothing worse than that. So if these people are allowed to riot and bring down their cities, then I'm allowed to not pay my tax bill, because clearly the American government is not responsible enough to manage our money anymore. And we need to put a stop to it now. And that is a great way for us to stick it to the government and say, screw you. We're not paying the tax bill because we did not want this shit. We did not promote it. This was your own doing. You're going to fix it. I don't give a shit what you guys do. You get out there and hit the streets and raise money to pay for this garbage. But you're not raising my taxes to pay for something I wanted nothing to do in the first place. I'm not there on the ground breaking crap. I'm not there lighting shit on fire. Why should I be affected by this financially? None of us should be. So that will be the next protest. That'll be our next peaceful protest. Not settling the goddamn tax bill. Let's go over to the Keyboard Warrior Cam and see what other people have to say about the video we just saw. Tucker Carlson and Officer Grady Judd talking about the fact that we need law and order. We need law and order to fix this stuff. We don't need Maxine Waters running her mouth, causing more chaos throughout America. Diane says, well, we'll go to Paula's comments. Paula says, love Sheriff Judd. The problem with all these people moving to Florida is that they want to change things to be like what it was where they came from. If it was so great, why'd they leave? You know, this is a good comment. And this is not only happening at a local statewide level, but it's also happening at a national level. I've been saying this for years. And I've also said this about the UK. When I lived in London in the UK, I saw it. Immigrants would come into the UK. They then want to change the UK. And if there's any of my UK friends watching this video right now, you guys know 100% what I'm talking about. And you may have seen it in other countries. Immigrants in Europe flooded the UK from emerging market countries. They brought their corruption with them. They brought their ideologies and concepts with them. They then tried to change the UK. Instead of coming to the UK and say, we're in a different area now, or we're in a different country, we're going to respect the UK laws, we're in the UK now. It's the UK way. Nope, that's not what they did. From the Middle East, from Eastern Europe, they brought their bullshit into the UK and tried to change the UK. So what happened? The Brits had enough. Cue Brexit. Get out of our country. We're done. They slammed the door shut. They wanted nothing to do with it anymore because they were sick of these immigrants coming in and trying to change their culture. So we saw it in the UK to the point where after belonging to the European Union for decades, they had enough and they said, we want out. Well, now we're seeing it here in America. We're seeing these illegal immigrants, not even proper immigrants who have come in the right way. We're seeing illegal immigrants come into the United States and they are trying to change our culture. They're trying to get in the way of America achieving its traditional core values and objectives. And that is where we need to put our foot down. And already Biden's going back on his word and he's slamming the door shut on immigrants. Hence the reason AOC is having a freaking conniption fit over the fact that Biden said, sorry, we can't do it. Got to shut the doors. Well, it only took them tens of thousands of illegal immigrants storming the border, and they're now into America, for him to say, maybe we do have a crisis. So we're seeing it at a statewide level, or we're seeing it at a national level. We saw it in the UK, and now we're seeing it here on a state-by-state level. And this is the biggest thing that all of these southern states and these Republican states are worried about. Come to our state, but don't you dare try to bring your liberal bullshit down south. And if they do, I hope these southern states kick their ass right out and make them feel like absolute shit. Because liberals, you have a right to your opinion, but stay in your own deep blue states with that shit. Do not bring it down south. Because when I, as a Republican with traditional core values, get sick of the state that I live in here in up New York, when I have had enough, I need to know that I can go to another state that is actually free, that actually has and protects the Constitution, that applauds law and order. I need to know that there's a safe haven for me and my family to go to. I don't need you bringing your liberal bullshit into these states so that when I get there, I'm thinking, what the hell? I thought this was a free state. So do us a favor. Stay where you are. Do not leave New York or California or whatever other deep blue state you live in, because Republicans, when we finally had enough, we're leaving. And you can deal with the high tax bill and the violence in your own backyard. So don't keep voting Democrat and then tell me you're pissed off with the violence and the high tax, because you did this to all of us. When you vote for this bullshit, you are voting for chaos and higher taxes and anarchy and defunding the police. That's what you all sadly represent right now. Pete says the sheriff should tell his counterpart in Marion County about upholding the law and avoiding the good old boy treatment of violators. So it sounds like there's a little bit of an issue in the next county over. Scott says, what a shame it's even needed. Exactly. Talking about law and order, reinforcing the anti-riot bill that Governor DeSantis. Why? I can't believe we even need a bill for this stuff. We need a bill to tell rioters they're not allowed to riot? That's what America's come to? So Scott says, what a shame it's even needed. It used to be that this type of behavior was actually punishable by law, not celebrated by the media and fools in Washington. So what are the Republican Party doing right now? Well, GOP leader McCarthy, he plans to introduce a resolution to censure Waters over dangerous rhetoric. Now, here's where I have a problem with this. Screw censoring right now. Censoring is a slap on the wrist and doesn't do shit. We need her expelled. We need the Republican Party to come in and completely get rid of her. Impeach her. I don't want censoring. What is censoring going to do? Censoring is nothing more than a slap on the wrist. For those of you who don't know what censoring means, censure is a formal disapproval that can be adopted by one or both chambers of Congress. Unlike impeachment, so it's not impeachment, it's not expulsion. Unlike impeachment, censure is not a power provided by the Constitution. The House and Senate have adapted internal rules that allow them to draft and approve a censure resolution, which provides a public record disapproving of an official's actions. So that's all censure is. All it is it's an approval. It's a document, a public record disapproving of an official's actions. You think that's all we're going to do? We're going to throw a censure at Maxine Waters. Such a resolution is a rebuke, but does not carry any material punishment like removal from office. So McCarthy's come out and he said, this is McCarthy's big, let's go take them down. This is his big disapproval of the situation. We're going to censure Waters over dangerous rhetoric. We want it to be known for the record. Buddy, we don't need it to be known for the record, okay? It's out there. Everybody in America has seen it. This isn't time to play politics. This is time to go after this psychopath because of what she's done today and what she continues to do and what she's done numerous times in the past. This is not the first time Maxine Waters has come out and incited violence. She's the only one doing it now. And I understand and appreciate her cry for justice. I do. Just like I appreciated Martin Luther King's cry for justice and Malcolm X's cry for justice. And you want to march? I'll march. I'll stand right next to my black brothers and sisters and I'll march. But this shit is unacceptable. And all she is going to do is encourage America's next civil war. So who is doing something about this? Well, not Kevin McCarthy, not Mitch McConnell, the one, the only, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Always Marjorie Taylor Greene. Leave it to Marjorie Taylor Greene to ever do anything. Marjorie Taylor Greene wants to expel. She wants to expel Maxine Waters from Congress. I'm going to pull this up. She has now filed articles. I'm going to try to make this a little bit better for you guys to see. But Marjorie Taylor Greene has actually come in and she is now going to lead the charge on taking out Maxine Waters. And this is what we need. We can't leave it to the moderate Republicans anymore. We need conservative, hardcore patriots to get the job done. Somebody made a great comment on my wall the other day and said, Republicans, they're Democrats today. We need, if you want anything to be done the Republican way, you need to rely on hardcore conservatives now. Conservatives are the new Republican. Because Republicans are nothing more than Democrats today. Because they don't stand up to the Democrats. We all know they sit there and play a big game, but they don't actually separate themselves when push comes to shove. So according to The Hill in a statement on Sunday, Greene said she will be introducing a resolution to expel Maxine Waters from Congress for her continual incitement of violence. That is what we need. We don't need a slap on the wrist from Kevin McCarthy. We don't need a censure. Who cares? We need expulsion here. And Marjorie Greene said she will be introducing a resolution to expel Representative Maxine Waters from Congress for a continual incitement of violence. And then, of course, the article goes on to talk about, because this is from BET, which, great channel, by the way, but a little bit biased, obviously, towards the black community. So they don't like what she has to say about this. And then she gets into her association with QAnon. But Marjorie Taylor Greene is leading the charge, and she's the only one who had the guts to actually come out against Biden. If you guys remember, one day after Biden was sworn in, who led the charge on filing articles of impeachment towards Biden? Marjorie Taylor Greene. God bless this woman. Thank God we have people like her, Lauren Boebert, Josh Hawley, Ted Cruz, Matt Gaetz, Jim Jordan. They're the real heroes in the story, but they need to step up now too. Enough is enough. We either open the doors for a civil war for everybody, or we shut this shit out now. But the one thing that we cannot tolerate any longer, regardless of what the message is the burning and destruction of our American cities. That is the one thing we need to put a stop to right now. The Democrats aren't going to stop it. The Republicans are the only ones who can do this. I don't care what you want to call them, but they are the only hope that this country has, and I hope they step up now. Because like I said earlier, and in a post yesterday, they don't start stepping up now, they will never win another election again. Guys, thank you so much for joining me today here on You Made It Political. We go live every single morning at 10 a.m. Stay tuned. We have a new show called The Red, White, and You, where we'll start having guests on 3 p.m. every day, weekdays. Stay tuned for all that. Have a great rest of the day. We also stream to Amazon Music, Spotify, TuneIn, and a whole bunch of other podcast platforms. Check it all out. You Made It Political. Good night.
Thanks for listening to You Made It Political with Matt Clark. Be sure to like, follow, or subscribe to the show, or leave us a review on iTunes. And if you like our show or want to know more, check out YouMadeItPolitical.com.